Yo, what's up, guys? Leafs lose 3-2 in a penalty shootout tonight to the Buffalo Sabres, guys. Not a bad performance tonight by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Obviously it's a loss, a shootout loss. Obviously us Leaf fans wanted the Leafs to lose in regulation tonight, not gain any points. Obviously top five in the draft pick, guys, is a main priority for the Leafs this year now with the way things have gone this season. Good battle tonight for the Leafs. I thought they battled hard tonight. Obviously didn't get hammered tonight. Buffalo's obviously one of the best teams in the NHL this year, one of the hottest teams since December. So the Leafs, I was expecting a way more of a hard-fought game by this Leafs team, obviously due to the fact that this was their first game without Austin Matthews. Of course, we obviously know the extent of Austin's injury now. It's being an MCL tear, grade 3 MCL tear with obviously a quad contusion. So you knew that the Leafs were going to come out and battle hard tonight a little bit more, and especially how you saw them battle in the third period against Anaheim. So I'm not surprised that the Leafs had a valiant effort tonight. It is a good thing that they did lose. If they had won tonight, that wouldn't have done them any good tonight, obviously. But, it was a hard-fought win tonight. Joel Wall was absolutely spectacular again in his third straight start tonight, making 31 saves on 33 shots tonight. Joel Wall was immense again tonight, guys. Playing some incredible hockey again, making some great A saves tonight for the Leafs to keep them in this game. Obviously he gave up a goal in the first couple minutes into the game, because the Leafs had a breakdown defensively. You see Owen Power wide open in front of the net there to make it 1-0 for the Sabres. And I was saying to myself, is this going to be one of those nights where the Buffalo Sabres just have a point night and start hammering the Leafs? But listen, give the Leafs some credit. They did battle. Loved what I saw from them. After going down 1-0, they didn't cower down. They kept battling, forechecking. Buffalo turned over the puck a couple of times. Nylander got on a breakaway. It was saved by Lyon. Then Buffalo turned the puck over again in their own end there. Joshua was able to get the puck there, snipe it over line to tie it up at 1-1. Really nice goal by Dakota Joshua to tie it up at 1-1. And then speaking of Joshua, loved what I saw from him, getting into a scrap with Luke Shen, of course, former Maple Leaf, obviously. So great to see that. Now, obviously, as a Leaf fan, would I love to have seen that against Radko Gudas last game, right away as soon as Austin went down. But, a bunch of these guys are saying they didn't see anything. They didn't know the extent of the injury, yada, yada, yada. It's all bullshit if you ask me. And then seeing Joshua get into a fight tonight was great, showing some toughness, showing some fight and pushback, but obviously it would have been great to see that last game. But like seeing Joshua fight Shen, showing the Sabres that the Leafs aren't going to cower down to them. Even OEL getting into a couple scrums after the whistle when Joe Wall got knocked over. Love seeing OEL getting involved there. So, listen, that's what we want to see, us Leaf fans, is our team, not letting other teams push them around, getting into scrums, fighting, defending their goalie, defending their teammates. We saw it tonight. Anytime any Sabre got near Joel Wall or anybody after a scrum, you just saw everybody getting involved and piling up and defending each other. Now, obviously, that is a main fact, is because a lot of people question these Maple Leafs guys, these players' integrity, of course, and what they are as a team, them being a bunch of individuals not standing up for their captain, obviously. A lot of people were questioning these players. So these guys knew that they have to come back with a different mindset this game here against the Sabres and probably the rest of the season. Now, obviously, I'm a little bit worried, that these guys here are going to try to play great the rest of the way. It galvanizes them to play well the rest of the season, get some points, obviously, and play strong for their captain the rest of the way. Listen, if they want to play like this tonight and lose every game, I have no issue with that. Just don't go winning a lot of games and screwing your draft position and trying to give the Boston Bruins the best possible pick possible if you're not in that bottom 5 position there. So, hopefully the Leafs can play with this type of effort tonight like they did for the rest of the season, but still lose games, obviously, not get blown out, show grit and energy, obviously. That's what we want to see the rest of the way, and not get their asses handed to them every bloody game. But, listen, Leafs did a good job responding, not letting Buffalo, kick their ass, and pushing them around, obviously. Obviously we saw what the Sabres did last week against Tampa. They're a physical team. Obviously Buffalo's a great team this year, having an incredible season. So you just know the Sabres were going to get very physical as well with this Leafs team. And the Leafs responded well in the second period. William Nylander with a great pass to Max Domi playing in his 800 game. William Nylander with the patience and time to make that perfect pass to Domi. Domi slots it in bottom corner there, getting a goal in his 800 game there, guys. Really nice pass by Willie. Nice goal by Domi. Leafs taking the 2-1 lead, and Buffalo, I was very surprised that the Leafs were able to take the lead. Buffalo was I felt the better team in this game majority of the time. They were pushing. But give the Leafs credit. They were battling in the first period. They started off the second really well. And then after as time went on, Buffalo started to impose their will, started getting more all zone time, because after the Leafs scored that goal there, Buffalo started really to push the tempo, push the pace. They did get some power plays, the Sabres. I thought the Leafs did a good job killing off some penalties there, until Buffalo got one power play, and then Jack Quinn gets a goal, on their fourth power play. You just knew sooner or later that Buffalo was going to get a goal. Pizzetta took a couple questionable penalties in this game today, so Buffalo ties it up. Really nice goal by Quinn. Great backhanded pass there as well by the Sabres there to tie it up at 2-2. Joe Woll was doing everything in his capabilities to keep this a 2-1 lead for the Leafs, but unfortunately, Leafs take the dumb penalty. There's a breakdown there in the corner there, obviously, and then boom, it's a 2 game, right? But listen, Leafs still continued, to not give up as many danger chances to the Sabres. Buffalo did have chances, but the Leafs weren't as exposed as we've seen them in past games, and the third period was not pretty, obviously. Buffalo was the way better team in the third period, guys. The Leafs only had 2 shots in the third period. Buffalo had like 10, 11 shots in the third period. They were really pushing the tempo. Joe Woll, again, just really shutting the door there. Buffalo had a great opportunity at the end of the second as well. Benson wide open in front of the net there. He couldn't bury it. Buffalo had that 2-on-1 chance there. Quinn blew a tire on one side of the ice there, so Buffalo wasn't able to capitalize on the 2-on-1 there, guys. John Tavares had a great chance as well. He wasn't able to score, so there were some good opportunities on both sides there, but it was able to stay 2-2 in the third period. Leafs were able to hang on, very surprisingly, because Buffalo, like I said, they were hemming the Leafs in at times in this game. Leafs did forecheck a few times, did have some all-zone time, but not very much. It wasn't a lot. But Buffalo, obviously, being the better team, obviously, they were going to be controlling the play more. Not surprising. Jake McCabe and Ekman Larson played over 20 minutes tonight. Jake McCabe played over 25 minutes tonight. Played 26 minutes tonight, Jake McCabe. I thought he was really solid tonight. So was OEL. Those two guys carried most of the workload back there in the defense, and then in overtime, Leafs had a great chance to close it off. Easton Cowan had a breakaway with a great play by Joe Woll to see that Cowan had the open ice, to let the puck out, advance the puck forward to Cowan there. Cowan had a great chance, couldn't score there. Gets tripped up in the net there. Unfortunately, stays at 2-2 for the Leafs there, even though, like I said, we want the Leafs to be losing as many games as possible. Then goes into a shootout. Nothing Joe Woll can really do on both chances there. Both shots are really good shots by both Sabres players, Tuck and Quinn. Buffalo goes on to take the win, guys, and Leafs get one loser point, of course. But listen, with Winnipeg and the Rangers losing today, that's really positive as well, I felt. Those two teams getting points as well is good for the Leafs, obviously, even though we got 1 point. The way they played today, guys, I'm not going to complain about. If you play hard tonight, show some grit, show some toughness. Don't get blown out every game the rest of the way. Like we have seen the Leafs get blown out the last couple of weeks, of course. If they play like this the rest of the way and lose games, I don't think any of us will complain. Joe Woll was solid tonight. Like what I've seen from Easton Cowan. He played 15 minutes tonight. Bo Groulx played 19 minutes tonight, so Craig Brubaker's clearly using him a lot more, obviously, because Matthews is gone. This kid's got to play a lot more minutes, and this is great experience for the guy, So loved what I saw from goal. He looks pretty sound with the puck, doesn't make too many stupid mistakes as what I saw in this game tonight. So liked what I saw from Knies and Willie led this offense tonight with the most amount of minutes tonight, 21 minutes and 20. Willie obviously had that great assist. Knies had an assist as well. Domi gets the goal, like I mentioned, guys. Joshua, loved what I saw physicality-wise. Had 6 hits tonight, so that's great to see as well, guys. But listen, at the end of the day, guys, I think we can all agree the rest of the way is all about getting as many losses as possible, prioritizing getting that top 5 pick, obviously. It's going to be very difficult, of course. But listen, like I said, Winnipeg and the Rangers won. St. Louis has been playing some solid hockey as of late. If we just continue to play like this and lose, hey, listen, I ain't got no complaints at the way the rest of the season's going. If Joe Woll, continues to have this confidence going into the next season, that's great as well. Of course, obviously there's a big question mark regarding his future or Stolarz. Someone's going to get traded this offseason. Honestly, the way Joe Woll's playing right now, you might have to give him the rope next year. Who knows? Maybe some team comes in for Stolarz, maybe. We'll have to wait and see, guys. But I thought Woll was solid today. I thought the kids were solid today, and Groulx and Cowan. Some of the leaders were okay today. Not the best game, obviously, by the Leafs in general. But you got some decent shifts from certain veteran guys like Domi, Joshua, Knies, Nylander. Of course, Tavares had a great opportunity. Fred Robertson, I liked how he played tonight with some decent minutes. Of course, playing 14 minutes tonight, had some decent shifts. But Obviously, wasn't the best game tonight. Buffalo's clearly the better team, of course. I'm sure that's very nice for Sabres fans here. It's not very often you hear that the Sabres are in a playoff spot and the Leafs aren't. So, listen, the Sabres are having an incredible year. Lindy Ruff has done an incredible job. The Sabres have some really solid young players. Obviously, they've been tanking for years. You've been able to get some young players like Dahlin and Power. You got some great players up front like Quinn and Thompson and Tuck, of course. So listen, good for the Sabres and their fans. Pretty loud in Buffalo tonight. That was a great crowd to say the least. Sabres, this was a big win for them. Obviously, they're trying to get first in the division ahead of Tampa Bay, of course. So solid win for the Sabres tonight. And listen, it would have been great if the Leafs could have lost in regulation, not get another point, continue to drop down in the standings there. But listen, Leafs get the point. They battled valiantly. Joe Wall played great tonight. Got some decent performances from certain players, guys. You got to play a back-to-back tomorrow against Minnesota. Obviously, there's some questions about what's going on in Minnesota. I think there's a snowstorm going on there, so who knows if that game gets played or not. We'll have to wait and see. But listen, we got 15 games left. Start playing the younger kids like Grul and Cowan more like they played tonight. Give Quillen some more time tonight. Obviously he played 10 minutes against Anaheim. I don't think he played 10 minutes tonight, but we'll love to see that kid get some more minutes on the ice. Pizzetta's obviously bringing some more physicality to the team compared to a guy like Steven Lorentz, of course. Stolarz is clearly going to play tomorrow night. Obviously, Joe Walsh played the last 3 games. Second night of a back-to-back. Clearly, Stolarz is going to get the nod tomorrow. Troy Stecher hasn't played the last 3 games. Myers has been playing with Benoit, so we'll see what happens there. Does Berube make a change there or keep the same lineups intact? But listen, at the end of the day, guys, Sabres are the better team. Leafs had a decent effort tonight. Not a horrendous effort. An effort I think we can all accept and agree with that. If you play this way for the rest of the way, we can go into the offseason thinking what tweaks and what changes can this team make with this hockey team, guys. But obviously now in regards to Austin Matthews being out the regular season with the MCL tear, obviously I think George Peros is an absolute jackass. Of course, he's a bloody Neanderthal if you ask me to give that animal Ratko Gudas only 5 games. I wanted 10 games, but the highest has been 7. It should have been 7 to 8 games if you ask me. But I loved what Jude Moldaver said. Austin Matthews' agent saying that the Department of Player Safety should be suspended as well. Totally agree with that. I don't think George Peros is fit to be doing the job he's been doing the last whatever many years he's been doing the Department of Player Safety for. But I think George Peros is unfit to have that job. I think the guy's an idiot if you ask me. Like, the guy was a 4th liner his whole career. What the hell does he know about player safety? Honestly, the guy was a bloody goon his whole career. Gudas is a bloody goon as well. He's going to protect all these goons like Gudas, especially against the Leafs. We've seen what this guy does when it's involving the Maple Leafs. The Leafs always get the shaft. When it comes to the Leafs being the offender, they get the hardest of punishment. But when they're the ones the Leafs are the ones on the other end, the other team gets the light punishment. It drives me nuts. Gudas is going to be able to play now against the Maple Leafs, on March 30th. I think they played the Ducks. So honestly there, guys, I better see that entire Leafs team like rabid dogs that day. Not just on Gudas. Everybody. You go after guys like Seneke and Gauthier, Go after guys like Trouba, Lacombe. Go after these guys, because after you go after our captain, it's time to send a bloody message to the Anaheim Ducks the next time we play them in Anaheim. That game's going to be very chippy. I think George Peros is a jackass. I think Gudas is a jackass. Loved what Jude Moldaver said, and I really hope that this changes the mentality of the Maple Leafs organization, that this cannot happen anymore next season and beyond. Watching your captain hurt his knee like that, watching the response like I mentioned in my other video, there needs to be some ample changes inside the dressing room and the mentality of how this hockey team is ran moving forward and how that cannot happen again. We saw a little bit of that today, a little bit of bite, a little bit of pushback from these guys, when anybody got touched or pushed. That's what I want to see. I think all Leaf fans agree. That's what we want to see moving forward with this hockey team till the end of the season and obviously going on to next season and beyond, guys. Hopefully Austin Matthews can recover from this injury and what other ailments he has in this season. Of course, he can rest now till September. This season will drag on, obviously, the last 15 games. Hopefully Austin deals with whatever he's dealing with, and hopefully he gets back to what we know he can be. Obviously, it'll be his 2nd year next year, without Marner, of course. Things could be different with the lines. Who knows, guys? But Matthews this season is obviously done. Really disgusted how George Peros handles things, but I'm not surprised at all Doesn't surprise me how that idiot handles things, guys, when it comes to the Maple Leafs. Not surprised how the Leafs play tonight as well. Really glad that they actually showed a little bit of character and fight tonight. It figures it takes your captain to go down and gain 60 bloody 7 for you to show some fight and some heart, after your captain goes down, Really frustrating to say the least, guys, but at the end of the day, guys, Leafs lose again. Buffalo finds a way to get the win, guys. Love your thoughts and opinions on this game tonight, guys. Like this video, subscribe if you guys want to see more content. Go Leafs, go as always, guys. See you guys on the next episode of Leafs Unfiltered. Ciao, guys.